Hi everyone, Byron Martin here at Logee's Greenhouses, and we're going to be talking about a tropical fruiting tree or shrub called Muntingia calabura that is native from Mexico down into Bolivia and is a very productive plant as a container plant. We've had this in our collection now for about 15, maybe 20 years. It is a prolific producer of these small, round, red fruit, and they're actually quite tasty. So one of the common names for it is Jamaican cherry. I guess the Jamaicans coined that name as it got into Jamaica and was grown there. And the other one is strawberry tree. And the reason for that is if you look at the flowers, of which at this time of, here's one right there, at this time of day, we don't have too many, they actually look like a strawberry flower. It has nothing to do with the fruit. It actually looks like the flower of a strawberry. And when you eat them, they're sweet and they taste really sort of like cotton candy. The skin actually has a little bit of a tang to it or a sourness to it, but they really are quite delicious. And the most interesting thing about it is that they ripen really fast. So in the morning you can come over and pick all your Jamaican cherries, and you can go back in the afternoon and there's as many there as there was in the morning. Here in Connecticut in the north, we keep it in a warm greenhouse. Now it probably can take it cooler than that, and warm meaning 60, 65 degrees and above. But it really suffers from that short day length. So the plant actually does better for us if we give it warmth and keep the root system warm during those really short days of January and February. And it doesn't really flower too much for a little bit as we get into springtime. But then when it's summertime, we put it outside and it just bursts into growth, and suddenly all these flowers come. And between the months of July, and we're in October, even going down into November, it's just constantly fruiting. There's not many on this tree because the folks here at Logee's eat them all the time, but every single day this plant has dozens of fruit on it that are picked and eaten. The interesting thing about it is this plant in tropical areas is a really vigorous grower. It can grow up to 12 feet or more in 1 year, just shoot right up out of the ground and create very large plants as well as stands of this. And when I first met this plant, I went, nah, that's probably not going to work at Logee's. I mean, 12 feet is about as high as many of our greenhouses are, and it certainly isn't going to work as a house plant or an indoor plant. But I took one anyway because, you know, I like to experiment with stuff. And surprisingly, when you put it in a container, and this is in probably a 7-gallon pot, the whole thing gets restricted. So you would never go into a tropical area and see this tight little bush. In a Muntingia, it's always a much larger tree. But it's that cramping of that root system and some of the restriction of water and fertilizer that slows it down and makes it really an awesome container plant. And believe it or not, although this is probably 6 feet in height, you could actually grow it at 4 feet in height, as long as you prune it, you know, periodically, particularly during that growing time. You can see here on some of this old wood, it's been pruned there, it's been pruned there. Mostly we propagate it by cutting, so there's cuttings taking off of it, but the pruning and cutting process, propagation process, actually contains this plant. But as long as you have sunlight, it's a very easy plant to grow. We have had some issues with mealybug on it if it gets onto the plant. It's not a mite-prone plant where you get spider mite on it and such things as that. So it's really not a lot of maintenance in terms of spraying. And as long as you keep that temperature warm during the wintertime, you really won't have a lot of root rot problems either. If you have a cold greenhouse, you'd have to really watch that. It may even go into sort of a dormancy. I would probably keep it above 60. It's the best thing in terms of northern culture. The growth is starting to slow down. Our light level here is quite low, but we still have some buds coming, and there's tons of green fruit on this that will ripen over the next few weeks. As far as nutrients, you want to keep this fed. It's in a pot and it's contained, but you want to keep the feed on it. Here at Logee's, we do a lot of constant feed on most of our plants. This is outside, so this is on a fertilizer regime of pretty much every watering. It's getting a little bit of fertilizer. That'll make it grow so fast, and of course, as all plants, you cut that feed back or stop it during the winter time. As far as feed goes, you want to make sure it's a balanced fertilizer. Something used for fruit trees. We have some citrus fertilizer, that'll work fine. Not really fussy about that. In the potting mix we use is just a standard peat-light mix, pH around 6. It has some limestone in it. Not very fussy, and you know, we really don't have a lot of nutrient issues with this as long as we keep the feed on it. So it's very adaptable. So there's a little bit of information on the Jamaican cherry or the strawberry tree, Muntingia calabura. If you'd like more information, visit us at logees.com.